It is First Strike right here on VEASAN, and I'm your host, Dave Ross. For the next hour, we're going to try to find the very best value that we can find for you here, UFC Fight Night, as we get ready for Islam Makhachev against Bobby Green on very short notice in a catchweight bout. And we'll get to all those particulars in a moment. Going to have Lou Finocchiaro join us, as well as Jordan Sherwood and Reed Kuhn. But I am here at Circa Sportsbook, and the man that sets the numbers behind us that you see here is Nick Kalikas, and is kind enough to join us again this week. Nick, great to have you back. Of course, follow him on Twitter, as I do, at Fight Odds. You can find Nick Kalikas there. Nick, I want to take a look very quickly at UFC 272 next week before we look at this week's card, because I noticed up on the big board here at Circa, you've already had those numbers up for Colby Covington taking on Jorge Masvidal. A rather big number here, over $3 right now for Covington. Are you already seeing action come in on this fight card? Because we know it's a big one whenever you have a pay-per-view.
Definitely, especially, and again, a price like this, Covington's ultra popular. Obviously, Masvidal is. A lot of people are coming in, parlaying Covington early on. So it's causing the line, I think, market-wide to kind of go up a little bit. And then straight action is going to come back in, obviously, on Masvidal, ultra popular, like I said. So I'm expecting that price to drop as we get closer to fight day.
So again, if you're watching this right now, listening to this, you might want to think about that, of getting the number on Masvidal now, because to your point, Nick, it's probably going to switch in. The number will come down as that popular money comes in on Street Judas or Street Jesus, depending on whether you listen to Colby Covington or not. All right, let's get to this card this week at UFC Apex right here tomorrow night, Saturday night here in Las Vegas, with Islam Makhachev against Bobby Green. Now, this is a catchweight bout here because Green's taking this bout on short notice, only 2 weeks. He was in the octagon just 2 weeks ago, looked really good in that 3-round decision. Now he's going to take on Makhachev here, the huge favorite here, minus $9 betting favorite to Bobby Green. The comeback right now we're seeing at plus 600 here. Well, again, catchweights are tougher, Nick, I think, to put out there. We know how popular Bobby Green is now, and people are like, it's great, he's getting his shine. Good luck going up against Makhachev here at 21-1, but you are the main eventer here, even if it is on short notice. What are you seeing so far in the action?
Long overdue for, obviously, King Green to get in there and get that main event slot. But we are seeing Makhachev getting bet up. Of course, straight action early on, around minus 600, we got hit, and then now parlays, of course, are coming in his way as well. People are not hesitating to bet Makhachev.
Even at that large number?
Even at the large number, yeah. You're seeing market-wide minus 800, minus 900. I mean, we're approaching minus 1,000, of course, out there as well. So they all believe in what is kind of meant to be. Like, he's the next heir apparent to Khabib, right? I mean, his stylistic matchup is like that, like the nightmare it was for everybody else in that division. It seems to be the case for Makhachev.
When you look at this, and again, from a handicapping perspective, I guess a lot of people don't really look at the catchweight that often, right? It's supposed to be, lightweights at 155, but because this is Bobby Green taking it on short notice, he's going to come in, and we assume, around 158. Makhachev doesn't have to cut the extra weight to get down to 55. Does that factor in at all, or is that really inside the weeds for fight guys like ourselves?
I don't think it's going to factor in all that much. I mean, Bobby Green has had some difficulties cutting weight in the past as well, so for him to make weight on short notice says a lot. I mean, he's definitely focused, ready to go, even at that catchweight price. And again, it's always going to be a difficult time for Makhachev because he's obviously not a small guy in the division either, right? So the weight cuts, I think they're both professionals. They both got it down pat. I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern.
So now, when people that might shy away from weighing the $9 with Makhachev, right? Then they're going to start looking at other prop ways to possibly get this number down a little bit. Are you seeing 2.5 is what I've seen here, pretty much market wide for the over/under, and pretty even money? I'm seeing minus 105 right now for the over, minus 115 for the under, or minus 125 rather for the under here. Are you seeing any action coming on this if they want to shy away from the side?
Right now, it seems to be trending a little bit more towards under 2.5 rounds. I think the narrative, again, here is as the fight progresses a little bit, Makhachev has the better submission game, the better ground game. A lot of people are thinking he will get that spot, that opportunity to win by submission on the ground. So I think that's why you're seeing people coming in basically on the under 2.5 rounds right now. But I do think we'll see some sharps kind of take a stab at that over as well.
What would be a liability here? Because you look at Bobby Green, and obviously submission is the one you go, well, that's the biggest long shot on the board at 35-1. Decision, this is a 5-round, non-title bout here, but it is a main event. So 14-1 there, but you're already getting long odds on Bobby Green anyway. I got to think that TKO, if you're a Bobby Green backer, TKO KO DQ is the best scenario for him to pull the big upset at 12-1. Do you think that's where the action for the Bobby Green backers comes in?
Yeah, I believe so. Like you said, kind of throw that sub out the window completely. I mean, he's
Right.
got a good defensive ground game. He doesn't use it offensively as much as we like to see, so you could kind of throw that out the window. But between TKO and decision, I think is where you want to look at, and probably more so TKO, because if he gets this done, it's probably going to be in stunning fashion, right? So he's probably going to knock him out if he gets it done. On the scorecards, I think he'll be more competitive if it does reach that far, right? More competitive than people think, but I still think that he's up against it on the cards.
And when you look at sub for Makhachev here, right? And this is where you get into the Khabib conversation, 21-1, get this fight down to the ground, drag you down, and hopefully get the tired guy out that just fought in there a couple weeks ago. Minus 110, to me, that would seem like the more attractive play instead of obviously laying the big number, the $9 on Makhachev.
Yes, that's going to be the attractive prop play for sure on Makhachev. There's no doubt about it, because look what you just said. I mean, look, Bobby Green has conditioning, he's got cardio, but in a 5-round fight, as we get into round 2, round 3, the kind of that sweet spot a little bit. I mean, you start to wear down, and that's where Makhachev could possibly take over. So I think everybody's going to target that kind of prop. Instead of laying that 900, they're going to look at Makhachev by submission.
You know, it's interesting too, Nick, because when you mention it with Khabib in that context, when you're putting in fighters kind of from Khabib's stable, if you will,
right,
are people jumping to bet them because like, oh my goodness, there's never going to be another Khabib. But boy, when you look at Makhachev on paper and 21-1, it's hard to shy away from the obvious that this could be, you don't want to say the second coming, but he does feel like an heir apparent in a way.
Yes, no doubt about it. And I think his whole camp gets that kind of respect because they know the quality. I mean, one of the greatest of all time in Khabib. So that kind of does, iron sharpens iron, that old saying. It's true, right? I mean, the better training partners you have, the better coaching you have, it does show, it does pay off. So I think a lot of people automatically, when you see Khabib in the corner, they're going to get some action. You know, people believe in them a little bit more. There's definitely that more secure feeling when you have those type of fighters.
Yeah, so again, if you're a Bobby Green backer, and who doesn't love Bobby Green? As you mentioned, King Green getting this long overdue to get this main event, but boy, oh boy. Hey, you asked for it, you're going to get it. You're going to get Islam Makhachev. This is going to be one whale of an opportunity for Bobby Green. Let's see how it plays out, but you can understand why he's the $6 betting underdog here. Let's talk about the co-main event here. MISHA Circa against Wellington Turman, and a much closer fight on paper in this 3-round non-title bout. Are you seeing action come in, and which way so far?
Yeah, a lot of sharps are back in Cirkunov in this spot here. I'm not really that surprised. I think on paper and what he's done in the octagon as a career so far, I think he should be a very slight favorite. But the trust factor for me on both sides of this, I mean, defensively, these gentlemen are both very flawed. So it's hard for me to actually back or trust any one of these fighters in this particular spot. Should be a fun fight. Both have finishing ability. But again, defensively, it's kind of where I'm concerned about. So we have seen that sharp action come in on Cirkunov, but we're seeing some resistance back the other way. So the line's not starting to fly Cirkunov's way.
You know, and you look at the age difference here in the 9 years age difference. I wonder how many, maybe the sharp side so far is coming in on the favorite, but I wonder if people look at that and they go, wait a minute, 9 years? You mean the younger fighter here in a relatively close fight, at least with the odds? Might you see more resistance come in as the day goes on?
I think so. I think that, and again, Turman's kind of one of these guys that still has a little bit more of a ceiling, so to speak. But I think, again, both of these guys, their performances in the past, especially defensively, has kind of raised a lot of question marks. But I do think the age always comes into play, and people do like to fade older fighters, the veteran fighters a lot, right? Yeah. And more times than not, it's going to come through, you know, depending on the stylistic matchup. Matchups are everything, of course. But in a case like this, I think we will see people backing the younger fighter.
Yeah, I always say, you know, hey, just because we're getting older, don't always bet against us. But maybe in the fight game, it's a better way to go. Let's talk about some of the other fights here in the main card. We got Cachoeira taking on Ji-Young Kim. Kim right now minus 160. Cachoeira at plus 140. Any numbers coming in here so far?
Yeah, we got some sharp bites on the dog, and the market has come down a little bit, agreeing with that side. And I think it's right. Stylistically, again, I think Kim is the more technical fighter, right? That's what people are going to fall in love with, her striking, her ability to kind of throw clean technique and impress on the scorecards for sure. But Cachoeira on the other side of it, she's kind of more that brawler. She's kind of the one throwing some really big bombs, and Kim doesn't want to get this fight to the floor more times than not. So I think Cachoeira, stylistically, it's a good matchup for her. That's why we're seeing sharps better.
On the undercard, there is a fight that stands out to me that I wonder if you're seeing action in, and that is Terrence McKinney. He's got one of the quickest finishes in the history of the UFC. I believe it was about 7 seconds. And then he's been injured, but he's back in there. Fares Ziam right now, is minus 120 against McKinney from Chicago at plus 100. You seeing any value coming in so far on McKinney?
These guys are both finishers. This is going to be a fun fight. Probably one of the sleeper fights on the card, really. So early on, it was Ziam getting bet up a little bit. Now we're seeing that actually come back towards McKinney. So a pick-em type of fight, it's kind of right, I think, in this spot. Because, again, both these guys do have some defensive concerns. Offensively, they get it done, man. I mean, that's why it's going to be so fun, because there's going to be fireworks in this fight.
Yeah, I look at that fight and you go, the sneaky fights that you try to look for in the undercard, and you go, this fight's really got a shot. Also, on your show on ESPN, what other fights have you guys kind of diagrammed to say, yeah, this is going to get probably one that you don't want to miss either?
Well, for this particular show event, we don't have a show.
Okay.
We are preparing for UFC 272 next week. So
Can't wait for that.
Thursday, we're going to be live 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern on UFC Fight Pass. So make sure you tune in. We'll have all the best bets for UFC 272. We didn't touch on this card as of yet.
All right. So again, you look at the main card here, and you can understand why a lot of the action coming in on the main and the co-main so far. But again, as we get closer, I think as the fight fans start to evolve a little bit, and yes, UFC 272 a week away, that's going to draw a lot of the attention. Again, are you seeing a lot of fights, a lot of money come in during the week, or is it really on fight day that you're still going to see it?
We're going to see it more so on the day before and on fight day. That's when the majority of the action comes in, even from a lot of sharp bettors as well. Recreational bettors, of course, are going to bet more so on those days. But through the week, what you see is just these spots that you might have some heavy, sharp action come in certain points, right? Mm-hmm. But then again, more of the recreational and the public action does come in more so on fight day.
All right, so again, can't wait. And again, this fight was initially supposed to be Rafael Fiziev against Rafael dos Anjos, and then that fight got canceled because RDA, of course, they'll be back in action at 272. That was last week's, right? So they'll be going on at UFC 272. Cannot wait for that card. All right, Nick, it's going to be a lot of fun. I know you're going to have a very busy week, but not just with this one, but looking ahead to 272. So we'll check you out on UFC Fight Pass as well. Okay, much more to get to right here on First Strike. Again, Lou Finocchiaro is going to join us in the next block. Jordan Sherwood from Chicago, and then Reed Kuhn going to break it down analytically to see if we can find the very best numbers for you. It is First Strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you plenty of ways to bet the UFC. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, and you're going to be able to bet on more than just the main event. DraftKings has great odds on fight lines, total rounds, and futures for MMA events. Eligibility restrictions to apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full terms and conditions. Dave Ross back here, First Strike, joined once again by Lou Finocchiaro. Follow him on Twitter as I do, @GamLou. Has a great podcast that we'll get to in a little bit. The BOUT Business podcast, because he is always about business and cashing winners on UFC fight cards. Lou, let's talk about this one coming up on Saturday night, UFC Apex right here in Vegas. And you look at Arman Tsarukyan against Joel Alvarez. Alvarez plus 180 here. Tsarukyan minus 220. I know you have a propensity to go for the dogs. Might this dog be biting?
This dog is a dog that is a cheater and is always angling for advantage. No, I am not. Now, while Alvarez has a couple of really great recent fights, he also has some physical attributes that make it easy to think he's going to be a live dog. He's 5 inches the taller man. He's got reach advantage, and he completely demolished Moises in his last fight. Meanwhile, on the other side of the cage, you see Arman Tsarukyan. He happens to be ranked 13th in the division. His only pro loss has been to Makhachev, who is in the main event tonight and on his way to a championship opportunity. Tsarukyan wants that fight back with him. It was a close decision. And in this fight, Alvarez, who missed 155 in his last 2 fights, actually made the weight, which was the trigger for me to jump Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan opens 340. He drops to 220 on everyone chasing the dog, and I can see from recency why they would, but we got to tear the onion down a little bit, a few more layers, and find out that Tsarukyan is going to have to withstand a furious first round, and after that first round, Alvarez is going to show the signs of being a fighter that needs to be fighting at 170. He's going to start to draw out. He's going to lose his zip, and Sarukian, in my opinion, is going to dominate him. I like Sarukian via decision plus 175 in this fight.
All right, plus there it is, because I knew you always find the best way to find and maximize that value. So plus 175 for Sarukian to get a decision. I can get it here at DraftKings plus 180, even better. Again, KO, TKO, DQ plus 200. Sub, you don't think that's the scenario there. That's why it's 8-1 that Sarukian can get that win that way. But win by finish is plus 165 to go to the decision, plus 180. Now, I'm with you, Lou. When you look at Sarukian here, and you talk about the class in the lightweight division, when your only loss there is to the guy that we think is the heir apparent in the division, that's pretty impressive pedigree right there. So maybe Alvarez biting off a little bit more than he can chew. Terrence McKinney is a very interesting guy from my old neck of the woods there in Chicago, Illinois. And right now against FEATHERWEIGHT Zayam, he is a plus $1 here against Zayam, who's minus 120. Basically a pick 'em fight that we're seeing on this one here. Two guys that we believe, Lou, have potential staying power in this division. What do you make of this matchup, and do you think that there's any value here on the American?
No, I do not. Though the Americans' last 10 fights have all finished in the first round, 8 of them wins, 2 of them losses. I think he's in against a guy in Zayam that's going to be, again, 3 inches the taller man with 2-inch reach arms and legs. Zayam is a little more deliberate. He's not as flashy. And he, too, is going to have to withstand the furious first round that is Terrence McKinney. However, we haven't seen McKinney have to compete past the first round. Zayam's going to make him do that. And for that reason, Zayam, that opened minus 135, has come down to minus 115 or close to pick. Be patient on this one because they like McKinney. Let them go take McKinney. That'll present us with a well better opportunity with Zayam, who I believe will win this fight.
You know, Lou, it's interesting, too, that when, taking McKinney a little bit and stretching him out more than he's accustomed to here, the total rounds here, 2.5 in a 3-round fight. The over, plus 125. People expect this one to be a little bit quicker. Is there any value there possibly in making this fight go over that 2.5 at plus money, or do you think eventually that McKinney might tire out and get stopped before we get to that finish?
Yeah, I have the 2.5 opening at under minus 120. Now the under minus 140, at least where I'm tracking. Mm-hmm. And so with that under, that I think is consistent with those that like McKinney, thinking that he's gonna be able to touch Zayam. I happen to respectfully disagree.
Okay, let's see how that one plays out. But that's going to be a very interesting firefight. We expect that to be a firefight at least. Let's go to the top of the card here. And obviously, when you've got a catch weight, I think everybody in mixed martial arts circles go, "Hey, we just love seeing Bobby Green get his shine, get his time as a main event here." But then you throw him in with Islam Makhachev. My goodness, good luck. You just fought 2 weeks ago. You looked really good, and now you get a guy 21-1 in Makhachev here. You got to fight at this catchweight bout. First of all, when you watch these guys on the scale and not having to make the 155, Lou, is there an advantage either way for Bobby on short rest? Or you say, oh, Makhachev doesn't have to cut down to the full 155 now?
There in no way is there any angle where Bobby Green has advantage here. 2 weeks ago, he was walking around at 195. So in 10 days or 11 days, he had to go from 195 to 158 where he weighed today. It's impressive that he made the weight. It's more impressive he took the fight because those ranked above him all ran like cockroaches when you turn on a light for the corner. They all ran away. No one wants Makhachev. Bobby Green has fortitude. He's not afraid. He's from the street, but he doesn't have a real chance in this fight based on the fact that he fought just 2 weeks ago. He has had no time to prepare for this man, and the drastic weight cut in such a short amount of time. Bobby Green's got, I would liken this fight to Masvidal and the wrestler that he knocked
Colby.
out running across the ring, Ben Askren. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Bobby Green has a round to try and hit Makhachev before he gets completely rubbed out on the ground. The way I will attack this is put a milk money bet on Bobby Green in round 1. Bobby Green in round 2, both are 2,500 underdogs. But those are milk money bets. This is not a fight I'm looking to invest in because Bobby Green doesn't really have a capable chance to win. He has a reasonable chance to win a lot of respect.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that handicap. Again, talking with Lou Finocchiaro. Follow him on Twitter at GamBlue, which I do. And Lou, when you look at the co-main event here, MISHA Cirkunov going to take on Wellington Turman. Turman right now, plus 100. We're seeing about minus 120 the other way. It feels like an even fight in the 3-round co-main event here. What do you make of this matchup here at 185 pounds?
Cirkunov used to fight at 205. He couldn't get it done there. He was a little chinny, meaning he had a tendency to get hit and go out. We moved to 185, and he had a lackluster performance against a good top 15 fighter. Now they serve him up a guy in Turman that's really a journeyman fighter, and that he comes a pick. Cirkunov's the bigger man. He's statuesque. He's thick. He's big. He's huge. But I think Turman's going to stand there and trade with him. Again, not a fight I think there's any value in at all unless you're looking at Turman.
All right, give me one fight that you really like that might be a sneaky fight, at least from a handicapping standpoint, that we haven't discussed yet. Anything that you really do like either on the undercard or on the main event card?
Absolutely. Do not be late on the first fight. A kid from Mexico City fighting a kid that lives in Texas that's from Mexico. 225 125-pound flyweight's going to get in the octagon, and they are good. This is Mexican pride. These guys are going to throw it down. Carlos Hernandez fights on one side, and Victor Altamirano on the other. I happen to favor Altamirano. This fight opened close to a pick, and we've seen money come in on Hernandez, who, as I look through his past fights and body of work, I just don't see it. I like Altamirano here a little bit, but I really would encourage people to watch this fight because it's going to be a barn burner.
All right, I'm going to be right here at Circa on Saturday, and when I get done with the show, I'm going to put that on to make sure I do not miss that first fight of the night. Hey, Lou, tell them about the BOUT Business Podcast. Got about 30 seconds to go. What they get on the BOUT Business Podcast.
The BOUT Business Podcast is 16 minutes of my final releases for each UFC card. It drops Friday afternoons. I would invite you to all listen to it. And Dave, thanks so much for having me on this wonderful show.
Always look forward to catching up with you each and every week. There he is, everybody, Lou Finocchiaro. Again, follow him on Twitter at GamBlue. When we come back, Jordan Sherwood is going to join us from Chicago. It is First Strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Want more betting insights to give you an edge? Well, check out VSiN's Best Bets podcast. You can listen to daily sports betting highlights from the entire 24/7 stream of VSiN experts, tracking the line moves, odds, props, wins, losses, and bad beats from sportsbooks in Vegas and across the country. Download the VSiN Best Bets podcast now at VSiN.com/podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. Always great here on First Strike to be joined each and every week by Jordan Sherwood. Follow him on Twitter as I do at Woodon1063. And he has a new podcast that we're going to discuss here in just a moment. But Jordan, let's get right to it here when we look at this card here. And obviously, we got UFC 272 coming up next week. But this week, UFC Fight Night with Makhachev against Bobby Green, as he's going to be in the limelight. We'll talk about that fight in a minute. But I did want to start off with the Brahimaj against Gilmore fight. And these names sometimes, I apologize to the families at home. But we know that Brahimaj is an exciting fighter to watch. Gilmore right now, the over-under, you like the under in this one, and it's juiced heavily here at minus 140. Why do you think this fight might be quicker here in the Vegas night?
I just think that Gilmore is going to be a fish out of water when this fight goes to the ground, and I eventually seen it go to the ground and go to the ground rather quickly. Gilmore's 0-2 in the UFC. He got submitted rather quickly in his, I think, first appearance. Then he got knocked out via TKO in the third round of his second appearance. And he's got issues on the ground, and that's where Brahimaj is just, on dynamo and is extremely successful. So I think it's going to be kind of a quick fight. And I would suggest that not only that prop, that via submission win is in play, but a first round submission win should be in play as well. Because, Gilmore just really struggles off of his back when the fight gets taken to the ground. I think Brahimaj is not going to, risk being in a stand-up fight against Gilmore. Get the fight to the ground, get it early, and likely get Gilmore out of there rather quickly.
Speaking of getting people out of there rather quickly, that's when we see Zion against McKinney in Terrence's last fight out, and it's been a minute because he got hurt after the fight. What was it, about 7-8 seconds, fight over, making some history here. Plus 100, plus 110, we're seeing at some different shops here for the American. What do you make of this fight? And you think it's another quick night here instead of maybe one that people might think might be prolonged? Because right now, the under is juiced minus 145, so plus money to take the over.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it's juiced to the under. It's because McKinney has 3 KOs and a combined 1:45 worth of cage time, including that 7-second knockout you just alluded to with Matt Frevola and his last time out. I can't figure out why McKinney is an underdog. I'm trying to look. PEREZ Zaim is a good fighter, but he's tentative. He a little bit slow starter and succumbs to pressure, and I think will also be vulnerable to the takedowns if McKinney isn't having success on his feet. So I'm shocked that McKinney still is an underdog as we get closer now, 24 hours away from the fight. So I'm definitely suggesting McKinney. And I think that you certainly have to look at the under just on the way that McKinney has been able to finish the last couple of opponents in the last couple of times that he's been in the cage. Plus the fact, too, he's training with Glover Teixeira. That doesn't hurt, being schooled by the current light heavyweight champion of the world. But I will say this. I have been saying this about it. I don't want to go on either side of a fight. Like, I'm playing McKinney. That is my play for tomorrow night. But I will say this. Zaim is a guy that probably a little bit of a slow starter, and we haven't really seen McKinney go a hard 3 rounds. So I don't know if I'm trustworthy yet on his cardio. So might be a live bet. If McKinney can't get Zaim out of there early, you play Zaim midway through the fight. But as I mentioned, I think this will be a rather quick fight. I think McKinney is going to overwhelm Zaim and get the victory, get the finish. So I like Terrence McKinney to continue his win streak tomorrow night.
Well, Jordan, I think it's an excellent handicap because, again, for a guy that does not get taken into deep water in McKinney, he's going to come out, blazing. That's just the way he does. And if Zaim's a little bit of a slow starter, as you alluded to, he could get caught early. But if that scenario doesn't happen, see how the cardio is after 1 round. Look at those live odds, and maybe you can hop in there if McKinney doesn't get it done early. I'm with you on that. When you look at the main event here, and you look at Bobby Green in a catchweight fight against Makhachev, it's tough, and you can understand why. Makhachev is minus $9, Bobby Green plus 600 on the comeback, why these odds are the way they are with Bobby fighting just 2 weeks ago. And look, even though he was dominant in his win, it still did go the distance, the full 3 rounds here. And now you're right back in there against a guy at 21-1 that could be the heir apparent in this division. Can you make any case for Bobby Green other than we just love to watch him and everybody roots for him? But it just feels like an extremely uphill battle.
Yeah, it's an extremely uphill battle. I mean, I guess the argument for Bobby Green is that Islam Makhachev was not preparing for Bobby Green. He was preparing for Beneil Dariush, who's got really good stand-up. But at the end of the day, Beneil Dariush is far well known for his jiu-jitsu game and his grappling. Bobby Green's a guy that's a boxer, a guy that's has good takedown defense and has very strong cardio and is a difficult fighter to take down and is a difficult fighter to finish. So it will be difficult for Islam Makhachev to kind of prepare for Bobby Green in that ilk. But you're right. I mean, Islam Makhachev is Khabib Nurmagomedov 2.0. Khabib's going to be in his corner, I do believe, tomorrow night. And this is a guy that, it's supposed to be the heir apparent at lightweight. But Bobby Green is surging. And he's a guy also that rarely gets finished. Yeah, he was finished by Dustin Poirier. It's the only time he's ever been finished in the UFC. He rarely gets submitted. I think the last time that he got submitted was 2013. So it's been quite some time since Bobby Green's gotten finished. So yeah, I think this is going to be a tougher fight. And I'm actually surprised right now. Even the over at 1.5 is minus $2. I'm shocked by that just because Bobby Green is such a tough out. And Islam Makhachev, has been finishing guys in the last 2 fights. But prior to that, he's not a finisher. He's a guy that just grinds you for 3 rounds and gets a unanimous decision victory. So I love the over in this fight, probably playing into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, even to the championship rounds, just because of the tough out that Bobby Green is and the game plan that Makhachev is probably going to bring, not having a game plan. He's just going to have to be who he is, and that's a wrestler, that's a grappler, that's a guy to grind you out.
Well, there it is, too. So you mentioned the minus $2 there for a round and a half. If you want to go one more round to 2.5, minus 105. So Bobby's going to have to defend those takedowns. We understand that. To win by decision, by the way, from Makhachev would be plus 330. How about that? Do you think there's any value there that Bobby, with his toughness and his durability, can at least make it all 5 rounds in this non-title fight, even if you don't think he can win the fight?
Absolutely.
Right? Maybe you can find some value there in Makhachev. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, Makhachev's a guy that has been decisioning guys. And look, he took Dan Hooker down and nearly ripped his arm off. But prior to the recent streak that he's been on, the guy is like GSP. Like he's just like controlling fights, being in any advantageous position. Now, granted, like Islam Makhachev wants a title shot,
right?
And if he beats Bobby Green, he doesn't deserve a title shot. But if he finishes Bobby Green, if he looks out there and completely dismantles Bobby Green, a guy that's not in the top 15 in the lightweight division and is taking this fight on short notice, but is a guy that never gets finished, well, then maybe you make that argument. So Islam Makhachev could bark all he wants about being next in line for a title shot. A win over Beneil Dariush would have gotten him there. A win over Bobby Green, just a win? No, he's not getting a title shot, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair argument to be made there for what would be next, and depending on how, if he does get that victory over Bobby Green, how that goes. I like when you have opinions on fights, Jordan, so I want to get one from you from Arman Petrosian against Gregory Rodriguez here. Petrosian right now plus 135, Rodriguez minus 155. What's your opinion on this fight?
Yeah, I just think that Rodriguez is just going to be a little bit better and, be able to get this fight to the ground where he's going to be the dominant fighter. And he's a little bit robotic in his stand-up, but I think Petrosian's going to, struggle a little bit with that. He is he's making his UFC debut. He was, a guy that's coming out of the Contender Series, but Rodriguez is 2-0 in the UFC. And Petrosian's, background is in Muay Thai. So I'm definitely understanding the fact that maybe he'll utilize that, use some precision and angles to win a stand-up game. But Rodriguez is strong, extremely strong on the ground. He's got some really good takedowns, dirty boxing as well. He's 4-0, last year, and I think does have underrated striking and also potentially some underrated cardio. So I do have a lean, if you will, on Gregory Rodriguez continuing his win streak. All
right, Jonathan Martinez against Alejandro Perez. You've got an opinion on this fight as well. Martinez minus 220 in this fight. Could there be an upset, or do you think this is one-way traffic?
Well, I mean, if Perez gets the fight to the ground, then yeah, certainly there could be an upset, because Perez is extremely durable, and he's also got some good submission skills. We saw that in his last victory over Johnny Eduardo, so a very good ground game. And, look, he had a 7-fight win streak until he landed into Corey Stamen and Song Yadong, and those guys are 2 strong bantamweights. This fight's at featherweight, and it's really interesting because they agreed to fight at featherweight midway, about 6 days ago when Jonathan Martinez, I guess, wasn't going to be able to make the bantamweight limit. So, deciding on that now and not forcing Jonathan Martinez to have to go through the weight cut, I like it even further. I think Jonathan Martinez has a strong enough stand-up, outstanding leg kicks, and good takedown defense enough to get this fight in his favor. Alejandro Perez is a tough out, so that's why I like Martinez in the decision. So take the prop on the decision win for Martinez.
Got about 20 seconds. The Unnamed MMA podcast on ESPN Chicago. Well, are you guys ever going to name it, or is that the name?
Yeah, no, we'll just go with it. We just got the same type of information and more for every single UFC fight card, me and Adam Abdallah. So check it out at ESPN Chicago.
All right, you got to give it a listen. Hey, really appreciate the information as always, Jordan Sherwood. When we come back, Reed Kuhn is going to join the program. It is First Strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Compete for free with the Modelo Golden Ticket Challenge. Join 3 UFC contests and fight for your share of $20,000 in total cash and prizes. Plus, find out if you're going to walk away with the Modelo Golden Ticket and claim floor seats to every pay-per-view fight for an entire year. Head to DraftKings.com/Modelo now to get in on all the action. Modelo, the official beer partner of the UFC. No purchase necessary. Must be 21 years of age or older. Terms, conditions, eligibility, and rules are at DraftKings.com. Please drink responsibly. My next guest, you can find him because he is the author of Fightnomics, and you can follow him at the same handle, at Fightnomics. He is Reed Kuhn, and always a pleasure to have Reed back on the program here. Reed, you know, it's interesting because normally we always talk sides with you, and totals are something that's been new to your models. And I know this year here in 2022, the models have been very predictive and so far very profitable. Tell the people about that, how you kind of expanded out what you've been doing for so many years to now include those totals. And again, very profitable so far.
Yeah, it's kind of the same approach as we approach sides. We're looking at biographical data, we're looking at performance data, and then of course we're weighing that against what the market odds are. And we're looking for situations where we don't agree with the price, essentially. And that's what betting comes down to, right? You're trying to find an edge on what the market believes and say, I disagree, and I disagree a lot or maybe a little. So we're doing the exact same thing. It's just a matter of training up, looking at historicals and seeing what the prices were and being able to match it all to the system that you use going forward. So in order to predict the future, you have to look at the past and you need to line those things up using the same inputs. So that's really the nuts and bolts of it. The models themselves are somewhat of a black box. You turn the crank and you hope it comes out with a good answer. But after a long period of time, you tend to trust that there's a good answer there. So that is the methodology. Right now, we're focused on the men's divisions below light heavyweight, probably expand to the women's divisions next because those upper weight classes in the men's divisions tend to be a little wonky and also small sample size.
Yeah, no question about it. But Reed, let's start right there then, because hopefully this would fit into the models. But I'm always curious whenever you have a catch weight and how much the models can kind of try to decipher what we might see on Saturday night. When you look at Makhachev against Bobby Green here, and again, Islam here minus $9, Bobby Green plus $6 on the comeback. And again, the total actually intrigues me a little bit more than maybe the fight, because you can understand why Makhachev is such a huge favorite here. First of all, are you seeing any models that might suggest that Bobby could be the long shot play here, and or do you steer more towards the total here because we're seeing 1.5, 2.5, depending on if you think just the 2 week, he just fought 2 weeks ago, if that's going to play into it? What are the models showing in this main event contest?
Yeah, our data is up to date in the sense that we actually have Bobby Green's most recent fight, which wasn't that long ago. And sometimes I might be caught flat-footed and not be ready to do that or have to wonder about excluding it. But in this case, we are up to date, and we're ignoring the fact that this is a short turnaround for him. We're ignoring the fact that this is a weird catchweight situation. We're just looking at what would we normally do based on this current market price. And we have a massive, massive steep price for the favorite, one that, just probabilistically, you almost never see mathematically a cage fight where someone has a greater than 90% chance of winning, which is very rare. I mean, this is a sport where one punch matters. It can end a fight. There have been big upsets. So you just don't want to go there. And so this is a situation where you're either going to pass or you just say, yes, I agree with Makhachev being a massive favorite, and I will use him for parlays or whatever else. On the totals side, I actually do kind of agree with the prices as they are. We have 5 rounds. The likelihood of an eventual finish is fairly high, but kind of in line with where the odds are. Here's an interesting angle. If you're thinking about Bobby Green, it's probably an upset via stoppage. That does happen. If you look up at the biggest upsets in UFC history, they were usually by stoppage, because you're evaluating 2 fighters and like, well, this is going to be a slam dunk for one of them, but they get caught. They get caught by something, whether it's a strike or a submission. But usually the odds are predictive in terms of who's going to be winning the rounds and who has the overall advantage. And we agree with Makhachev. So if you're in any way tempted to bet Green for the big upset and look at that big juicy return, consider a finish, because if he does get it, it's probably a lucky strike that puts it away.
Yeah, agreed completely. If you're a backer of Bobby Green, and you got to think because the gas tank and the cardio, just fighting 2 weeks ago in a unanimous decision, easy victory in 3 rounds, he's going to come out hell-bent to try to get a shot. You can't imagine that he wants to take this into deep water. So I think to that point, that's good rationale. If you really want to find the ultimate value, 12-1 is what we're seeing here. KO, TKO, or DQ for Bobby Green to score that huge upset. So I think that's very good advice there. Let's look at the co-main event here with Circa against Turman here. And right now we're seeing -120 for MISHA and Wellington right now, plus $1. What do you make of this matchup? What are the models showing here?
Yeah, this one is interesting. You have two guys who like to be wrestlers. Cirkunov has been slightly more successful with that. But when they're on their feet, they actually match up fairly similarly. Both guys have been dropped a few times. So we don't see indications of a lot of power, but this is middleweight. I mean, you should have some power there. Cirkunov being the rangier guy, he's also much older. I don't know if he wants to get in a firefight with a much younger opponent who's young, spry. We haven't seen the power yet, but I'm sure it's there. Turman, for what it's worth, at range, doesn't have very good defense. He tends to get hit a lot, and Cirkunov is very accurate with his strikes, and so that could be interesting dynamic on the feet. But really, I'm expecting a lot of cage time, a lot of grappling time, and I'm hoping that Cirkunov has the edge here. I'm leaning his way. I see value in the line. His age doesn't concern me as much if he turns this into a grappling fight, because otherwise you might be worried about the chin, and that is a real concern here. But I'm leaning with Cirkunov, and I'm also leaning the over. I'm hoping this turns into a grinder one way or the other.
There you go, over right now, -165. You can understand why it's juiced there for the round and a half to get over that total of 7.5 minutes here in a 3-round fight, possibly going that way. So I can understand those numbers as well. Let's go to Cachoeira against Kim here. Kim right now, -160, +140 for the underdog. What do you make here as we move to our first women's fight of the night?
Yeah, this is interesting. I was looking at a particular stat. Sometimes you hear me refer to head strike defense. And that's a particular stat I look at specifically when it comes to power hands. Like, how many power shots do you actually avoid versus getting hit? Now, average is somewhere around the 70% range. You should be avoiding 70% of those strikes. Cachoeira is the lowest by this metric across the entire fight card, way down at 54%. She's basically eating almost half of all big strikes that come her way. And that is a bad thing, especially when you're fighting someone who has a 7-inch reach advantage on the feet. And these two, Kim does like to stay on the feet. She keeps it there 3/4 of the time, not even including the clinch, which is another 20%. So she's actually on the ground very, very little. So I think Kim wants to keep this on the feet. She's going to have a range advantage. She's going to have an accuracy advantage, and hopefully she's not eating quite as many shots as Cachoeira. So this is a situation I'm leaning with the favorite here. I think there's still some value in supporting her.
All right, time with Reed Kuhn. Got a couple minutes to go. Again, follow him on Twitter at Fightnomics. Let's talk about Sarukian against Alvarez here. Sarukian -220, Joel +180. Models showing a potential for an upset, or is this again one-way traffic?
I'm going with Sarukian. I think it is a situation where I back the favorite. It does make me nervous. So we have a strange style matchup here. We have Sarukian, who loves to wrestle. He spends the majority of his time on the mat just dominating people. And if Islam Makhachev weren't on this card, you would say Sarukian is probably the best grappler, best wrestler, offensive wrestler on the card in terms of maintaining control. Alvarez, when I first looked at it, had 0 ground metrics in terms of like positive metrics. Like, he didn't go for any takedowns. He hasn't landed any. His share of ground control was minimal, like almost 0. You rarely see that. But it's because he is so confident fighting off his back. He essentially lets people take him down. And so he does have kind of an aggressive striking style that might be to fluster people and get them to shoot for a takedown. He lets himself get taken down, and then he goes for chokes and submissions. And most of his victories have come that way, by submission. So this is going to be kind of a wrestler versus submission artist type of grappling match, and that's a strange dynamic. So I'm hoping, at least based on what I'm going to be backing here, is that Sarukian is going to be on top, in control, avoiding those submissions. And when you're avoiding submissions and on top, you're winning the round. So Alvarez might find himself in a spot like 2 rounds in where he's down on the cards. He really needs an upset or a submission, but submissions are pretty hard late in the game. So if he doesn't get it early, he's just going to get more tired, more sweaty, and Sarukian can probably just play to his game plan, which is probably just wrestling and lay and pray, ground and pound. whatever it is. But Sarukian does have the chops of a very strong grappler. Really, his only loss was against Makhachev in his debut. So since then, it's just been all domination. So I'm going to back the favorite here.
All right, Reed, very quickly, are the models you already hot and heavy for UFC 272 next week?
Loaded up, man. That is a stacked card. Going to be going deep on that one.
Cannot wait. There he is. Want to thank Reed Kuhn, Jordan Sherwood, Lou Finocchiaro, and Nick Kalikas for joining us here for First Strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.